going to tell you a story, and it's not going to be neat or easy to follow. It's going to take 10 parts, and you're going to need to pay attention. Did I say that already? Oh, and there may be a hint of a cycle. Welcome to the Aurora Wasteland Lifecycle. Episode 9, Waking Up in Your Head, Part 3. I think I've stumbled across something big, something I need to tell the world about. I'm not sure how to do so because I don't know if I fully understand it. It's bigger than everything, so I'm going to need you to pay attention, read between the lines, and come up with your own conclusions because I'm not going to lay it out for you. I've discovered 10 posts in the Aurora Wasteland that when laid together tell a story. A story that is going to change the world. So pay attention. I think I said that already. But it's true. Pay attention and think. Think outside the box. As well, you'll see. Maybe. Archived Aurora Wasteland post number 9. Post submitted by Aurora Wasteland field investigator and amended by Aurora Wasteland editor. A mouth as long as I am tall opened wide. Without moving once, it was open and let out the exact same blood-curdling scream we'd heard, the same one we'd come running to help. We both turned to look at it. As the mouth closed, the eyes opened. They stared at us, darting back and forth. The mouth stretched out into a grin. Then I felt a tug on my arm as I stared into its massive eyes. It was Naomi, who knew she had better get the fuck out of their instincts than me. And as I turned to give in, the head shifted. Ice around the cave shook and fell. The head temporarily vanished back, as if it was repositioning itself. Then a hand took its place. When you work in the field with Aurora Wasteland investigators, you pick up some interesting curse words. My favorites being monster fart plume, interdimensional cock pirate, time doesn't work the way you think it does, so bend over and let me fuck myself. Wait, that last one really is more of a saying. I think I saw it on one of the team's t-shirts. Yeah, they had matching t-shirts. Nerds. Okay, I want one. Anyways, I let out a string of clever and timely curse words, then gave in to Naomi's pull and followed her sprint away from the hand that was now following us. Some would say chasing us back through the ice cave. She had no trouble throwing herself past the dead pieces of creature we passed on our way in. I guess being chased by a giant hand and face does that to you. Before long, things started to look different. We passed creatures I didn't recognize. At some point in our frantic getaway, we must have taken a wrong turn. I hadn't noticed other tunnels before, but now as I stared at a giant severed ass, tail, and dong, I was certain we were in a different place. You don't forget a dong that size, trust me. Naomi stopped next to the dong, panting, and asked if I was okay, which I was, but like her, I was out of breath and honestly freaked to the max. The cave was silent except for the sounds of our breathing. Naomi's phone reflected off the ice and lit her face beautifully. Now, how had I been so stupid? This beautiful woman was into me. Me! How could I let her go? Then, like we were sharing the same thought, Naomi rushed over and kissed me. Then said she was sorry. I told her I was sorry too, and that I'd acted like a baby. I kissed her again. Her lips felt so warm in the cold, icy air. I wanted to stay there like that forever, but that wasn't the case. As we stood there making out like teenagers, a throat clear, rippled down the cave. Both Naomi and I turned, expecting to see the face again, but we didn't. Instead, we saw a woman standing there, no more than a few feet away. She said nothing but motioned for us to follow her. So we did. Looking back, this was a big horror film no-no. But hey, things are different when you're actually in a crazy situation. Not every brain neuron is firing correctly. We walked silently through the cave, following this woman. I half expected her to vanish in front of me, like a ghost or something, but she didn't. She led us through smaller and more random cave turns. Half the tunnels we went down I didn't even know existed until I was in them. Then, like turning on a light, we passed through a door and entered a laboratory. Well, I'm sure it's an embarrassment to laboratories everywhere. The place was a mess. Half-dissected creatures laid on all surfaces. They looked not that different from the creatures we passed in the cave, only there was more light to see everything in all its horror. The creatures were peeled back, and it looked like something was... Okay, I'm not going to lie. I may have tinkled a little when I saw what came next. A massive, dark gray hide beast lay dissected on what looked like a morgue table. Its skin and ample muscles peeled back, its chest bones cut and removed. There was a slice up into its head, where the front of its face had been removed, the entire front of the skull sliced off, and none of that was the pants peeing part yet. There, staring up at us from inside the creature, was a person. A human woman. Naked, dead, and embedded inside the creature. It was then that the woman spoke for the first time, the one we'd followed through the caves. She told us her name was Eden, that she'd been down here for a long time, and that she hadn't spoken with her mouth in even longer, possibly ever. Which, if I'm being honest, was all really weird. She said she was trying to save the people who were inside the monsters. She said she started out like that, and was saved, if you could call it that, by the two people who left her down here. She showed us an elevator in the back of the lab. It seemed to be running, only it was locked, and for some reason she couldn't access it. So she was stuck down here with these creatures that just kept coming, and she wasn't able to save them all. Around now, Naomi gave me the old, "We should not be here. We should have stayed back in the ice well where we fell in. This is all your fault. But I forgive you because I love you. But still, this is messed up, right?" She wasn't wrong. I approached the elevator and pushed the button to call it. As I did, something sharp and pokey pierced the skin on my finger, drawing blood. Mostly out of surprise, I recoiled. Naomi rushed over to my aid. I examined my finger, then the button I'd pressed. It appeared that by pressing the button down, I allowed the elevator to extract my blood against my will. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, like the boredom of normal office life, the elevator descended, and the doors opened. Naomi threw her arms around me and kissed me again. We'd found our way out. This was all over. I turned to invite Eden to join us, but she was gone. Again, I know we should have left. We should have gotten in the elevator and left, but that's not how Naomi worked. She couldn't just leave the woman behind. We had to find her. She had to save her from all of this. For the record, I would have taken the elevator up and called some Aurora Wasteland backup, or maybe the army or whatever. Either way, I yielded to Naomi and followed her back into the cave to find Eden. I'm not going to lie, we were lost. The cave was covered in ice and looked exactly the same everywhere you went. The only markers that guided us were the dead, sliced into creatures we passed. So, as we went, I tried to memorize them. It was like that stupid game we all used to play as kids. I don't know the name, but it starts with one kid saying, "I'm going on a trip and I'm going to bring," and then he says something like, "an apple," and the next kid repeats everything the first kid said, but adds to it, "I'm going on a trip and I'm going to bring an apple and a bag of dicks." The game goes on, back and forth until someone messes up. So that's what Naomi and I did with the monsters that we passed. Giving them names, repeating the order back and forth. Naomi is great at this game. I am not. Around Creature 50, the ice cave gave away to a massive, ice cave? It was a portion of the cave we'd for sure never been in. The ceiling had to be a few stories up. The place seemed to be as big as a soccer field. And standing against the wall on the far side of the room was a huge, neon glowing ring. It was the first light source we'd seen other than the lab since coming down here. The neon blue glow was soothing and hard to take your eyes off of. Hand in hand, we slowly made our way towards it. In all my Aurora Wasteland work, I'd never witnessed anything like this before. I was happy to be sharing it with Naomi. I was happy to have her in my world. I felt like such an idiot for being the way I was before. It was amazing how much everything in life before being down here with Naomi didn't matter anymore. Life simplified down to its basic, I want to be with this person. The section of the cave with the ring on the wall seemed warmer than the rest. The ice dripped and the floors turned to water the closer we got to the ring. About halfway to the ring, there was a ripple of blue in the center, almost like someone had poked it with their finger. Then another, followed by a spew of chaotic ripples. Then it went smooth again, and just looked like a massive neon ring hanging on a cave wall. Totally normal. I could feel Naomi's hand tighten in mine. The moment felt kind of beautiful. I turned to look at her. The blue glow lit her in a way I needed to remember more often. She was beautiful both inside and out. I leaned over and kissed her cheek. Then I did the unthinkable. I told her I loved her. I know, right? Who knew I was even capable of it? She kissed me back, smiled, then told me she loved me too. Okay, I know, we should have left right then and there. People who are brave enough to state their love for someone in a horror movie often end up dead. So, like I said, we should have left. Ran, actually, but we didn't. Further ahead, just below the neon ring, and outside the glow, something caught our attention. Something was moving. No, two things were moving. There was a howl. Then, there was the silhouette of a creature. It looked like one of the creatures we saw in the lab. Naomi turned to run, but I stopped her. There was something else there. I stared into the neon glow and darkness. It was Eden. She was near the ring. She was with a creature. She was rubbing its face and stroking its hair in a way that could only be described as motherly. I watched as the creature got closer and closer to her. Eventually, its huge head rested against her chest. Naomi urged me to leave, but I couldn't. I needed to see what was happening. Exploring the unknown was what my soul demanded. Behind Eden and the creature, the neon ring rippled again. And then another creature, similar to the one with Eden, fell through the ring and clawed its way to its feet. Slowly, it approached Eden as well, and for a brief second, she held them both tight to her body. Then, with little warning, she pulled some sort of sharp tool from her back pocket and sliced open the head of one creature. It made no noise. Its body limped to the floor. She repeated the process with the other creature. Then, with both bodies on the floor, she continued to slice into them. Spurts of what was inside the creatures sprayed into the neon-lit air. Finally, she bent down into the darkness around the creatures' bodies. Her head vanished into the dark and returned with 2 other heads. 3 people rose from where Eden and the 2 creatures had been. Had she cut them out of the creatures? Were those 2 people inside the monsters? Or whatever they were? Naomi again urged me to go, but this time I took her up on the offer. We ran back through the cave, playing our little name game in reverse order, which, for the record, is way harder than you'd think. We found our way back to the lab and the elevator, where I again called the elevator and it sampled my blood. Anxiously, we got in, and as the doors closed, Eden, followed by what I could only assume were the 2 people she'd cut out of the creatures, stepped into the lab. They ran for the elevator doors, but it was too late. The doors closed. They frantically tried the button over and over again, but it didn't stop the elevator, which rose up from the lab, leaving Eden and all the horror behind us. The ride up felt like it took forever. The elevator was slow, and we both badly wanted to get out and leave this all behind us. Finally, we reached the top and the doors opened. The sound of the real world washed over us. We stepped out of the elevator into a gift shop for the tour we'd taken. The place was packed with tourists. No one seemed to have any idea what was going on below them. We did the only 2 things we could think about doing. First, we hopped on Naomi's bike and got out of there. The wind and sun on our faces felt so nice, a permanent reminder we were alive. Second, I contacted the Aurora Wasteland, and within days a team was back at the site. They found the elevator and took it down. From what they described, the place was scrubbed clean. No creatures, no lab, nothing, just the elevator. They found no sign of Eden or anything else living down there. Well, except for the gigantic sneezing crabs. They found and documented dozens of them. Editor's note. This is the end of the story provided by the Aurora Wasteland. Most of it cannot be backed up with evidence, though what Aurora Wasteland story can. The story does all add up with the events that the Aurora Wasteland is aware of. And then there is that footage that seems to get lost in all of this. The one that spins the story on its side. Maybe we should talk about that. It should be noted that the Aurora Wasteland field agent has not been heard since the events of this story. Sometime after the event took place, video footage from the gift shop was anonymously sent to the Aurora Wasteland. The video shows Naomi and the Aurora Wasteland field agent getting to the gift shop in the elevator, but then being able to unopen the doors and going back down. Minutes later, 2 new people came up, wearing the clothes of Naomi and the Aurora Wasteland field agent. The Aurora Wasteland has requested permanent access to the site, but the government has denied the requests.
Did you see it? Story. Remember everything because you're going to need it. I can't lay it out for you because I'm not sure I understand it. Still, the message, the idea is big, and well, you'll see.
Hey, my name is Vaughn Ashby. I wrote this. If you liked what you heard, head on over to VaughnAshby.com/free and pick up a free novel or a bunch of other free stuff. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at AuroraWasteland.com. Don't forget to check out the Stories from the Wasteland podcast and search for Vaughn Ashby on YouTube for video versions and other exciting videos. Thanks for listening.